How's it going, guys? My name is Luis, and I've tried and reviewed multiple cases for the Nintendo Switch. I literally just reviewed the Nika one a few days ago, and all these cases have something in common. They do something really good for the system, but they also limit the system in some sort of way. From those reviews and opinions, Ztek actually found me on YouTube and offered to send me their flip case for the Nintendo Switch, claiming it's a really good case, and I decided, why the heck not? Let's put it through its paces and see if it's actually worth recommending to you guys. So, this is the flip battery case from Ztek for the Nintendo Switch. This Nintendo Switch case is a flip case with a battery bank built into it. If you've owned an iPad with a smart cover, it's pretty much the same mechanism. The flip case snaps onto the Nintendo Switch with a hinge-like design at the top and bottom of the case. It's a bit scary to put your Switch into the case because it requires you to put some pressure on the system when you sort of force light it into the case. It has yet to scratch my device, but even after using it for about 3 days, I'm still kind of scared of scratching my Switch when putting it in and taking it out of the case. The hard plastic just being pressured against the metal of the Switch, it just doesn't feel particularly reassuring. The back of the case is where you'll find the built-in battery. It's a 10,000 mAh battery, and it feels like it's about the same weight as a Nintendo Switch console. It's pretty hefty, essentially doubling the weight of the Switch when you're carrying it around with the case, but that extra weight does add a nice barrier of protection between the Switch and whatever it's laying on. There's a few ports on the battery, like a micro USB port and USB-C port. These are used to charge the case itself, while the USB out port is used as a battery bank for other devices. So while this is a Nintendo Switch battery case, you can still connect other devices via USB, like a smartphone, to charge your Switch via the case as well as a phone at the same time. The way the battery connects to the console is via a flex ribbon USB-C cable right underneath the Nintendo Switch. I'm particularly really fond of this cable design choice because it gives the cable a bit more room to move around. It feels less likely to break or snap off. At the bottom of the case is an on and off switch along with 4 battery indicator lights that tell you a rough estimate of how much power is left on the case. Aside from being a battery case, this is also a flip case. The material around the flip cover is a polyurethane material that's similar to the outside of the iPad smart covers that Apple sells. Inside the flip cover are little ridges that can act as a kickstand if you fold the flip cover backwards. If you fold the cover forward, you could lock it into place with the magnetic flap on the case, and it'll protect your Nintendo Switch screen. The flip cover half of this case is really well made and provides one of the best kickstands I've ever used with the console. The differently placed ridges on the inside of the flip cover let you stand the case at 2 different angles, 3 if you count it just standing upward. It's really sturdy feeling. It worked great whether I was playing out my desk, a table, or just laying down on the couch. The fact that the charging cable coming out of the battery case is flexible also helps because now you can charge the Switch and get a decent kickstand at the same time. You no longer have to compromise between the two or choose the Hori case that's just a stand. The extra USB port on the battery is also a useful feature. The usefulness of a battery case for me is being able to take my Nintendo Switch on the go for long periods of time, more specifically for long train or plane rides. Being able to charge both my Nintendo Switch and my phone off one device saves me the hassle of having to carry a second battery bank just for my phone and my tablets. The battery inside this case also has a high enough voltage to actually power the Nintendo Switch, so it's not just straining it slower, it's actually staying at 100% until the battery case dies, and then it's straining the actual console. The battery bank is advertised to get about 12 hours of battery life with the Switch, and that's a bit of a stretch. With the brightness set to high and Wi-Fi turned on, I was able to get about 8.5 hours of mixed gameplay, ranging from Pokken, Splatoon 2, Legend of Zelda, and ARMS. If you make some compromises like turning down the brightness halfway and turning on airplane mode, then you can definitely hit that 9 to 9.5 hour mark. I never hit that supposed 12 hours of battery life, though if you do compromise and play Neo Geo games with the brightness all the way down and on airplane mode, I'm sure you'd eventually hit it. Ztek themselves claimed to me that they were able to get 10 hours out of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild with this case, and it's probably true if you do compromise and start to lower things like the battery life, the airplane mode, and things like that. But as for the time being, I'm not compromising with this case. I'm just using it as I would normally use my Switch, and if that's the case, then it's probably more like 8 to 8.5 hours. The added bulk from the battery also makes the Nintendo Switch a bit of a pain to play in handheld mode. It's not bad by any means, but I kept finding myself leaning on something, whether it was my chair, a wall, or just slouching forward. As much as I tried to force myself to hold all the weight of the Switch and the case, it started to strain me over time. There's also no way you're holding the Switch from just the Joy-Cons now, with all that extra weight on it. I found myself putting my hands through the little loop that the flip cover makes with the flap on the top of the case, because holding it from the battery was just a bit too uncomfortable. Luckily, this other method I've been using is pretty comfy. Now, despite the case design being useful at times, there's also plenty of concerns and just bizarre design choices. I mentioned earlier my concerns with just putting the Switch in the actual case since the install process doesn't seem too safe, but there's also a bad cooling system design. I'm pretty sure this was pointed out to Ztek at least at one point, because while the case was being shipped, they sent me this diagram of how the air intake works on the case with the system, and it's completely wrong. The diagram shows that the air comes in through the top of the system and out through the back, and it's actually the opposite. The diagram also shows that the back of this case is supposed to have a little gap to let the air out, though that's actually the air intake. Regardless, my case is missing a gap of any kind. It's pretty much just switched to battery with little to no space in between. This last one isn't so much a con, but rather just confusion. Behind the actual battery is a kickstand imprint with an actual kickstand built into it, blocked by the flip cover. I'm not sure if Ztek at one point planned on having a kickstand built into the battery, and rather than just making a new battery case with a redesign, they just recycled the old design. Regardless, it doesn't hurt the case, it's just a very weird design choice. Why put in a kickstand if you can't use it? The Ztek flip case for the Nintendo Switch has some pretty cool design choices, but also lacks in other categories. I love the design of the flip cover on this case. It feels nice, it looks nice, and is pretty useful with protecting my Nintendo Switch screen and also becoming a kickstand. I love that the battery inside this case has another USB port, so it's not just for charging your Nintendo Switch, but multiple devices, cutting out the amount of battery banks you need to carry for a single trip. With that said, the added bulk does make holding up the console a bit more difficult when playing in portable mode. The installation is easy, but a bit risky. It could lead up to scratches around the top and the bottom of your Nintendo Switch. The ventilation system for the console is also blocked, making it hard for the system to take in air, though there's cutouts for the top part of the system. It's a little bit concerning that Ztek sent me a diagram that's completely mislabeled in terms of the ventilation system. I feel like if you're building a case for the Switch, you should at least know how the fans on the system work. For $50, it's a pretty steeply priced case with the amount of things that the design got wrong. I honestly think that the best redeeming feature of this case is the flip case part. If this was just a $25 to $30 slim polyurethane flip case that could become a kickstand, then I think that'd be a much better case even with the missing battery bank. That's my review of the Ztek flip cover case for the Nintendo Switch. I think it's decent. I don't think it's amazing. There's definitely some flaws with the design and the execution of some things, but I really dig that flip cover mechanic, and I wish they would make another case that's just literally a good flip cover. No battery bank, nothing else that would ruin those aspects of the case. That does it for my review, but if you have any questions about the case that I may have missed in this video, feel free to ask me in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this content, then please consider dropping a like and subscribe. I do videos on the PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Thank you all very much for watching, and keep on gaming.